Hello, everybody. Welcome again to a live session on Canadian immigration by Hassan Shariq, regulated Canadian immigration consultant based here in Canada. I plan on doing these sessions regularly over the weekend so that I can provide the information on a timely basis to the community that I have. And in today's session, I will be taking a little more questions as well, because the last session that I did, that was more specifically for a particular topic. And today I'm going to talk a little more about the general updates. So I already see a few people who were waiting. Bilal, Assalamu alaikum. Hope you're doing well. Chaudhry Saif is there. YouTube email says, how am I doing? So I'm doing well. To begin with, a few of the updates. So for those of you who are already in the process, there was a bit of a pause with all the different processings that were happening all around the world. Most of the Canadian visa application centers were closed all around the world. There wasn't the processing of biometric that was happening, but now some of them, a small number, it is a select number, I would say. I think it's about 15 to 20 Canadian visa application centers have opened. In terms of some of the important ones, so the one in Abu Dhabi is now partially open. So they have started taking biometrics and stuff, which might be good news for a lot of applicants who are based in Middle East. This might be good news for applicants from Pakistan as well, because a lot of temporary visas, such as the study permits and these applications are actually processed in Abu Dhabi. This doesn't really mean that the Abu Dhabi processing center itself, the visa processing center, has opened, but this is the first step. So that's the first update that I wanted to share. Also, in terms of a PNP program, just a couple of days ago, Ontario, under its OINP, conducted its draw, and we saw that it was a targeted draw where only French-speaking people were invited. But that again shows that provincial nomination programs are undergoing, so that's not an issue. One thing that I'd like to share over here, and this is specifically for applicants from Pakistan, those who are in the process of their document finalization. So for ECA purpose, if any of you is looking to have their ECA done from CES, University of Toronto, right now, because there is a change in policy in terms of document submission by HEC. So previously, the process is that once you apply for your ECA, you first make your online application. In the online application, you upload all your transcripts, like all the originals of your transcripts. And then you are supposed to have your transcripts attested by, like photocopies of these transcripts attested by HEC, the Higher Education Commission of Pakistan, and have those couriered or mailed from Pakistan to the specific body. In case of CES, because they understand that there's a bit of a lockdown in many countries, and in Pakistan it is difficult to get hold of attested transcripts from HEC, so they've waived off this condition. Anybody in the current situation, I don't know for how long will this be placed, but right now, if you're applying for an ECA through CES, you only have to upload HEC attested original scans of your transcripts. You're not required to send your HEC attested photocopies. So this is a new update that happened probably about a week ago. I had a few clients and I checked for them, and this is what CES has confirmed. A quick overview of the CRS score. So I've been doing this analysis on the CRS score, and I've been sharing it through my various videos as well. Right now, if we have a look at the pool, the way the score stands is that this particular draw that we had a few days ago, actually there was a large increase in applicants within the high CRS range. So if you look at the score range, which is 450 and above, there was an overall increase of quite a few hundred applicants in there. So, and especially 470, 480, 490, this saw a larger increase. So this means that the high CRS range in recent times has not really gone down, although the overall number of people in the express entry pool has dropped. But that drop has been below 450. So if there are more people between 450 and 500, that is not so good news for not only the FSWP applicants, but also for CEC as well. So in my opinion, whenever we see the FSWP applicants being invited, it will take about 2 to 3 draws before we see the scores, the cutoff scores, dropping anything below 470. If we have draws of say about 3,500 to 4,000 people, and there are frequent draws in terms of about, I would say, a draw every 2 to 3 weeks, then there is a good chance that it might drop, and it can easily drop to close to 460s. Now, if it drops below that, that will still to be seen. But that 460 cutoff might only be possible once there are at least 2 to 3 draws in which the FSWP applicants are invited as well. Looking at some of the questions and queries, Saif has asked, I live with my wife and mother. My mother is of very old age and is completely dependent on me. Is there any way I could immigrate with my wife and mother? So with your wife, yes, definitely, that's possible, because she is a dependent on you, and that is as per the definition set out by the Canadian immigration, Canadian laws. So she's a dependent upon you, depending what CRS score you can have. If you have her in your application, she will be part of your application. If, for instance, you apply under non-accompanying spouse category to increase your points, you can definitely, once you become a permanent resident, you land, you do your PR activation, you can apply for her, and she can be added in a few months. In terms of your mother, so right away, she will not be included as part of your application. But there are ways and means to do that. If you get permanent residency and you move, one option is that you can apply for a visit visa for your mother. This visit visa is usually valid for the validity of passport. And in one instance, such a person can stay in Canada for up to 6 months. So that's the first option that you will have. She can be with you, stay there for 6 months, and there's a possibility of traveling. The next option that you will have is what is called a super visa for parents. So in super visa, what you can do is that you can apply for a super visa. Super visa is granted. You have to show a certain level of income based on your family composition. So for that, you will have to sort of work in Canada for about 1 year. Once you have that certain income level, you can apply. You have to buy medical insurance for your parents. And this visa is granted for a total duration of 10 years from the date of grant. And in one instance, your parent can stay in Canada up to 2 years. So this is a good opportunity wherein you would want to keep your parents with you. And then you have the option of applying for parents and grandparents permanent resident stream, which has a few requirements wherein you have to provide certain income level for at least last 3 years. So this will only be possible once you have spent, I would say, 3 to 4 years at least in Canada, and you've been working and you have a certain income threshold. So that's possible, but that will be possible after you've spent 3 to 4 years. So this is the way that you can basically have your mother accompany you in Canada. She will not be part of your initial application. Please give an honest, it's KKK. Please give an honest update and opinion on resumption on FSW draws. All my opinions that I've been giving, I think I tried to be as honest as possible. So I've repeatedly said this, that other than IRCC, nobody has the information as to when will FSW be invited. So everybody who's claiming that when is this going to happen, it is just personal opinion discussions. So that's again my case. I don't have any concrete information based on how things are. So right now, if you look at the whole dynamics here within Canada, as I mentioned, things have now started opening up. Canadian visa application centers, some of them have opened up around the world. Immigration processing is happening now in the province of Ontario. We've on 17th we had the second stage opening up, although in Toronto area here, greater Toronto area, we still have a lot of businesses closed, but now we are in the second stage of opening up. So that indicates that now things are moving back towards some normalcy. Now, in terms of FSW, you have to keep one thing in mind. FSW applicants are applicants who are outside of Canada. So the government is not only to look at circumstances within Canada, but also to keep in mind that what are the circumstances or conditions outside of Canada. So see, if you're talking of major source countries for FSWP applicant, it is China, it is India, Pakistan, Vietnam, Nigeria. So these 6, 7, 8 countries. Now, looking at these countries, there are still closures, lockdowns in these countries. So it will not be very wise to open up FSWP draws when a lot of these applicants, once they get the invitation, they will not be able to proceed with their application. Like, you might personally have all your documents ready, but if there is a draw and there's like 3,500 applicants, out of which I would say that, say for instance, you're specifically from India, or any applicant is from India, and there are like 800 invitations for India, who applicants who are inside India, and they're not able to, like, out of 800, 750 are not able to gather their documents in time. There's no point. Then immigration has to provide extensions to that. So because of that, they've been restraining on this. In my personal opinion, FSWP draw will not happen in the month of June at least. It might happen somewhere in July. I would say probably mid-July, end July. Also keep in mind that right now South Asia is like the hotspot for COVID spread. So things might actually be a little more tough in the month of July in South Asia, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, all those countries. So government will keep that in mind as well. Probably no FSWP draw in the month of June for sure, and highly unlikely in July as well. If it happens, probably mid-July or end July. That's my opinion, my take on FSWP draw. Simi Khan, so when will be the next SINP? Will they be doing after every 2 months only? So Simi, with provincial nomination programs, it's very, very unpredictable. First, it is totally dependent on the province, because keep in mind, you need to understand that each province has a small number of spots given to it by the federal government for for each year, and this number is small. So just giving you an idea, Ontario, which is the biggest province, has had about 7,300, 7,500 spots in total for the year 2020. So if we look at Saskatchewan being a smaller province, it might be a smaller number. It might be 5,000, 5,500, 6,000. And they have to distribute this number between the skilled streams as well as other streams. Like they have their investor streams, PNP, other streams as well. So this number is small. So they look at the requirements regularly, and they regulate it on that basis. To predict that what will be the frequency of Saskatchewan nomination is not possible. And also keeping in mind the current situation, the COVID situation, it becomes very hard for provinces to attract people from outside. So that's why when we saw the last draw that happened for SINP, the score was above 70. And score above 70 actually means that you have a connection with the province. Most likely you've had study from the province, or you're working in the province. So they only targeted people who are already inside. My personal opinion, for offshore applicants, Saskatchewan draw might only be once we get out of this COVID situation. It's not to say that they will not do it if this persists, because they only have a specific number of invites to be made in a particular year, and they have to exhaust that. So they will. They might use that for a different target audience. So every 2 months is not what I think, because if you look historically, they have been doing draws probably once every month. So they were doing one draw every month. I think once the situation sort of settles down, it will be one draw every month for sure for the Saskatchewan Immigrant Nominee Program. Could you please specifically guide me that which body offers ECA for CA from Pakistan? Okay, so for CA, keep in mind you can do it through various bodies, but important thing is that for CA you will not be able to get a master's equivalency or a master's assessment. So that is a big challenge with applicants who have CAs. If you have a bachelor's of commerce, like a 2 years bachelor's of commerce before that, and then you get to have an ECA done for your CA, you can then maybe benefit because of the education level, which is 2 or more degrees. But if you just have your CA, like if you probably did your intermediate, your FSE, and then you started doing your CA, and you do not have a bachelor's degree in between, you will only be able to get an ECA assessed for a bachelor's, and you will not be able to get a lot of points. In terms of CA, there are various bodies. You could check with the WES. You could check with IQAS as well. There's various bodies who would do, but most of them would give you a bachelor's equivalence for your CA. So you will only benefit if you have a BCom, a BA, another bachelor's as well, to gain enough points to be eligible for any of the skilled migration streams right now. Bilal, what PNPs do you suggest for applicants in EE pool but don't have a job? So I've already done a video on this. If you look at my YouTube videos, there's a detailed video about the current PNP options. I think I've sort of talked in length on this previously as well, that PNPs keep changing. So what I say right now might not be applicable in 3 weeks' time. But right now, if I look at the PNPs and we have to sort of take away the COVID situation out of this picture, because of COVID situation, some of the PNPs which were open to offshore applicants, they've kind of suspended it temporarily. But if we look at options for applicants who do not have a job offer and who are outside of Canada, so the possibilities can be Ontario, OINP, because they invite people from various professions. There are two specific draws. So there is the tech draw, wherein they have about 7 to 8 different professions which are focused on IT, computer science, software developers, web developers. So they have that tech draw that they do. They also have a general draw in which general professions are invited. Again, it's a list of about 8 to 9 different professions. So that's one possibility. OINP, and they do it frequently. They have a large number, as I said, 7,500 spots every year. So that's a possibility. Although more recently we saw that the cutoff scores for OINP went up as high as 450s. So that's becoming competitive as well. And we all understand that most of the immigrants, potential immigrants wanting to come to Canada, they are looking at Ontario as their first preference. So that's why the demand, the competition for Ontario becomes high, but Ontario is a realistic opportunity. The second opportunity that you have is Alberta. Alberta has a provincial nomination program where they invite. Although I would again share this with you that the CRS, the cutoff CRS on which they invite usually goes as low as 300. 350 is a common one. But they also look for, they don't write it in black and white anywhere, but they look for a provincial connection. So if you have an eligible relative in the province, your chances of being invited become higher. And the whole reason for that is that, see, when a province is sending you provincial nomination, they do, ideally they want you to move to that province, stay there for the first about 2 years, which is usually required, and also stay beyond those 2 years. They don't want people to come for like just 2 years and then move away. That's not the concept. So a lot of times applicants would go for these smaller provinces, if I should call it. Alberta is not a small province in any terms, but it's not Ontario. So sometimes people move in there, and then after like 2 years, they move out. So that's why Alberta has a strong focus that if you have a relative, a close relative in the province, you move in the province and you spend like 2 years in the province, the likelihood is that you will not move out because you've got family and then you're settled in those 2 years. So that's why they do invite people without job offers, but ideally if you have a connection with the province. But Alberta is a possibility. And the last possibility that I see, a realistic possibility at this stage, is Saskatchewan. In case of Saskatchewan, a lot of applicants, I have many applicants who've applied through me, who are in the processing right now, have had invitations from Saskatchewan, and they have no connection to the province, and they don't have a job offer, and they're outside Canada. It's just that it's very competitive. If you're looking at Saskatchewan, the recent draws that have happened, it is only applicants who are at the score range of 69 to 70, which is like a picture perfect profile, that you can expect a draw from Saskatchewan. So if your age is above 34, you lose points over there. If your IELTS is not CLB8, lose points over there. If you do not have like about 9 years of work experience, you lose points over there. But Saskatchewan again is a possibility. So these three are the major PNP possibilities for applicants outside of Canada without a job offer. There have been small round of invitations by some other provinces like Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. These are very occasional ones, like maybe once a year they'll do it. So you can submit your expression of interest and then wait and see. And also these provinces, they have a small, the allocation that they get every year is very small. And these offshore applicants that they invite is even smaller. And a lot of times it is just for a specific profession. So it'll depend if your profession, your NSE code is part of their invite. So Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, distant possibilities, but they've done this. So three big PNP options that are there are Ontario, Alberta, and Saskatchewan. Okay. So next question is OINP invited around 1K and BC Manitoba around 350 plus. So that will impact CC score, right? Even though there's an increase in newer applicants because they'll be given invitation in PNP. I'm not 100% sure, Ajay, about your question. Like I didn't really get the gist of it, but keep in mind with the provincial nominations. See, it's a two-stage process. So first, the province will invite, and anybody who submits an application against the invitation by the province, they'll be assessed and there'll be scrutiny by the province. And once they get the PNP, then they apply for the upload that for the express entry, and then they go out of the pool. So somebody who has had an invitation by, say, Ontario, that doesn't really mean that that person has moved out of the express entry pool. They're still in the express entry pool. So at times, these provincial invitations that come, provincial nomination is a different thing, but these provincial invitations that happen, they do not really reflect into a decline in number from the express entry pool. So it's always an overlapping number, and it's a confusing number. So I wouldn't really go with your assessment of this, that invitations by OINP, BC, and all this has an impact on the express entry profile. A lot of times, there are applicants who get an invitation by a province, and they have a good enough a score, and they end up not accepting that invitation. So that's a possibility as well. So I wouldn't really sort of go with your idea. If you meant something else, you may just write, and I'll try and answer that. Saf has a question: can I apply for PR with my wife and fly to get PR cards and return back to apply for my mother's visa and could go with my mother? Yes, you can. You can a lot of do what we call as the soft landing. So you can do the soft landing, wherein you travel, you land in Canada, you activate your PR, you can stay here for a few weeks. Once your PR card gets delivered to you, you can fly back, and then you apply for your mother's visa. There is also a possibility that once you've got your confirmation of PR, by putting up a strong case, you could have a visit visa for your parents at that time as well, and all of you can travel together when you are doing your first landing, and then you can all be back. So that's a possibility as well. So Jeevan has a question: I was in Dubai for 5 months, not continuously, on visit visa in the past 10 years. Does the immigration office ask for PCC if you have lived for less than 6 months in a country? No. If it's less than 6 months, then it is not a requirement. And this 6 months has to be continuously as well. So in your case, if it's 5 months, no, it's not required. Ajay, in express entry, do we have to disclose the information about our parents and blood relatives? And do they need police clearance and background checks, or I don't have to mention because they're not dependent? So you have to disclose information about your parents and blood relatives. There are extensive forms once you get your ITA. You have to provide their date of birth, their residential addresses, their occupations, your whole family structure. So that is to be there, but no police certificates are to be provided for them. Police certificates are only to be provided for your dependents. So your spouse, if you have children, that's what the police certificates are asked for. In terms of your parents and your siblings, that's not required, but you have to provide information about them. Saf has a question: will the 3.5 years training for CA be counted for the required work experience, considered it's continuous and paid? As long as it's paid, it's continuous. Continuous has a specific definition, and that again, I've done a video on that. You could have a look. But if it is paid full time or equivalent part-time work, it is definitely considered as work experience. Then there's Shimal Patel. Is there any chance of getting ITA having CES class in 421? I think you mean CEC, the Canadian Experience class. 421, I would say, is still a little bit of a stretch if CEC draws keep happening. Because if you look at the trends and analysis, you have to look at the numbers. You have to do the data analysis to predict this. So we saw that some of the draws that happened about 4 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago, the drop in CRS was 7 CRS points and 5 CRS points. The recent draw that happened, the drop in CRS was only 3 CRS points. Now, this is because, there might be a larger number of CEC applicants at scores around 430s and 440s. So that means that the drop in CRS will not be as much as it was in previous draws. And that's why I believe that now the CRS drop for CEC applicants, if the same trend continues, will not be close to the 5 CRS or 7 CRS points that we saw a few weeks ago. It might just be around 3 points, 4 points. So for score to go as low as 421, we are standing at about 437 right now. That means that if we even take the average of 4 CRS points dropping every draw, that is what, another 4 draws. So if the same trend happens and there's, I would say, 5 more draws, CEC only, then we might go into 420s, like 421. Anything before that, I don't see. So it's 421 is still a bit of a stretch. And keep in mind that more recently, a large number of applicants have moved into the express entry pool with scores between 450 to 500. I think it was about 1,100 applicants, and most of them would be CEC because we are not getting a lot of FSWP applicants. So this overall increase in number between 450 to 500 means that whenever there's a draw, even if it's a CEC draw, a lot of people will be picked above 450. So 421 still not such a strong chance. Okay. Moving on, and we are already 32 minutes, so I'll talk for another 5 minutes and then we'll close it for today. Shariq, what are the chances of, this is KKK again, Shariq, what are the chances of SIM score 68 or OINP 456? OINP 456, very realistic possibility whenever they open up to offshore applicants, FSWP applicants. It will depend as to what knock code you have. The tech knocks and the general occupational knocks that they invite through their round of invitations. If you have one of those knock codes, there's a very strong chance that 456 can be picked up in coming days. First, once we have the FSWP applicants being invited, and secondly, see, I believe once the normal draws start happening, there is going to be drop in CRS for the reason that the supply of applicants into the express entry pool is not what it was pre-COVID. And it will take a bit of time to come back to the level that it was because of IELTS not being offered, difficulties in ECA, a lot of other processings. So the CRS will definitely drop. So we saw that OINP went up to 460s, and that's when it went really high. But 440s, 450s is a realistic score for OINP. So that's a realistic chance. In terms of SINP at a score of 68, see, immigration is very fluid. There are always waves. If you just look at the cutoff scores for express entry and you look at scores between 2016, 17, 18, and 19, you would see that these scores went up to 460s and 70s even in previous years, and not just 2020 and the late 2019. And then there was a dip, and then it went up again. Now it might drop down. They at times the government comes up with such policies where they bring small changes into scoring and points, and that brings about a lot of difference as well. So things can fluctuate. If you look at SIMP and you look at like the 12 months, I'd say 12 to 16 months, they actually picked people at scores of 61 as well. So 68 is a good possibility. And if you have 68 and you're part of the pool, there is a possibility that you might be invited once they start inviting people from outside of Canada as well. Realistically, more recently, 69 has been the score where they've invited most people, but 67 there was a draw. I don't remember the exact month, but it was within I'd say about 6 to 8 months time frame where they invited people at 67. So 68 is a realistic possibility. Okay, another about 4 minutes. Simi has a question. If a person takes admission in any online program from Canadian University due to COVID, they are offering online program, will it be considered as relation with province? Will it help in immigration? So there are a few things to look at it. If it is a completely online program, that is not considered as study in Canada. So you will not be able to get any points for that. If you have to gain any points for study in Canada in terms of CRS or in terms of if it's a province, their own points for study in the province, a completely online program like where you finish the whole degree online is not going to provide you that. If it is a program where, say, if a lot of universities, what they're doing is that the fall term that they are offering as online, the program is not online, it is a normal in-class to be enrolled program. But because of the whole situation, they have allowed that the students are able to take the first term, which is the fall term, as online. That will be considered once you do the fall term and then you do the next term in Canada, that will be considered, the fall term will be considered as a complete in-class in Canada term. So if you do that, that will be acceptable, but a completely online program will not get you points for in Canada study. And the points that you get, which help you in terms of connection to the province or in terms of additional points, CRS points or the provincial nomination points, it has to be study in Canada. Okay, can I show sale receipts of gold for purpose of showing proof of funds if I don't have the 5 to 6 months bank statements? That is a possibility. It is. See, I've mentioned this in the past as well, that the two important things that you have to show are the ownership of the funds and your accessibility to the funds. As long as you can provide documentary evidence for that, perfectly fine. If gold was in your property or your spouse's property, you sold it, you can show the whole trail for that, the transaction history, and then now it is that fund, that money is in your ownership and you can access that. That's perfectly fine. You have to build a strong case to convince the officer onto that. Ajay, is it okay to have gaps after work experience? Spend most of my time preparing for IELTS and then COVID hit. So how can I explain the gap in E? If you've not been doing anything, just mention that that's unemployment. There's absolutely no issue. If somebody works for 5 years and then doesn't really want to work and just stay back and enjoy the life, who can question that? So as long as you have qualifying experience, like at least 1 year of continuous work experience, which qualifies you for EE, and then even if you have after the first qualifying year of work experience, even if you have work experience in gaps, that's fine within the last 10 years. So gaps in itself are not an issue after your work experience. What about for 430 CRS score for next draw? So Rajesh, 430. If you are asking exactly 430, I would again say that that might not be possible in the very next draw, but it may just be possible after like 2 draws. If you're asking 430s, somewhere in 430s, see, it's already 437. So next draw, if the pattern continues, it might be 3 to 4 CRS points less than what it is now. So that will be 435, 434, and then moving on. But as I said, if it is exactly 430 that you're asking, probably 2 to 3 more draws. And so I have a question from Navpreet, and that will be the last one that I answer quickly. Is there any chance of getting ONV PNP tech field with 421? Shimal, 421 OINP, offshore applicants, it seems a bit of a stretch. CEC, it might be possible. Jeevan saying thanks. You're more than welcome. Sam saying, hello, please share your view. How long CEC will continue, and in case FSW will happen, will CEC draw going to be held again? Thanks. Answer this. My own feeling, June, any draw that happens will be CEC. Nothing, no FSWP probably in June, and most likely up until mid of July. Alenia, does you how long the process to get PR now, taking in consideration of the COVID? So I think you mean to ask, Alain, sorry if I'm pronouncing your name wrong. You mean that how long is the whole PR process? Now that depends on which stream you're applying. If we're talking of express entry, once you have your IELTS and ECA done, you can have your express entry profile made. That's just a day or two. Depending what CRS you have, you might have an invitation after a week. It might take 2 months. Once you have the invitation, previously we used to have 60 days to submit our documents. Now it's 90 days. So consider that as 2 months. And once you submit your application under express entry, 80% of the applications are supposed to be finalized within 6 months from the date of application. So that's usually what it takes. Right now, there are slight delays in all the processes. So that's the general timeline. Probably I've answered you, but it depends on what stream you're applying. Altaf Hussain, what about the score of 465 when you see with FSW? With 465, Altaf, I believe there is a good possibility. And the reason for that is that I mentioned it over and over again. You could watch this video from the beginning as well, some of my other videos as well, that the number of people entering the pool is not as much as it was previously. In the big source countries, India, Pakistan, China, Vietnam, Nigeria, South Korea, all of these, the number of applicants who are able to sit for IELTS, who are able to have their ECA done, is way less than what it was before the COVID situation. So that influx is not going to be as much. Once we have FSWP being invited, right away it will not drop below, I would say, 470. But if we have consistent draws with say 3,000 plus people, and they're done at a regular frequency every 2 to 3 weeks, then definitely after about 2 to 3 draws, we might see it drop down into 460s, and 465 has a good possibility in that instance. Okay, does you how long? That's Altaf. Alain, I've also answered. I think it will. Thank you for answering 2 of my questions. Appreciate it very much. Shariq, KKK, you're more than welcome. Navpreet Singh, hi sir, are non-essential LMIA is being approved as on date. Non-essential LMIAs are seeing a lot of delays. So expect delays. It's not that LMIAs are not being approved, but at this stage, non-essential LMIAs are seeing a lot of delays. More recently, there was an update where now the requirements for an LMIA, especially the low-wage LMIAs, that has been raised. There's a little more strict requirement in terms of advertisement and stuff, and that is because a lot of people have lost their jobs within Canada, and these are people who are already on a work permit, or a lot of them permanent residents and citizens. So Government of Canada will definitely first focus on people who are already in country, they have the permanent residency, they have the citizenship, or even temporary workers already. Try and put these people back onto jobs before they can sort of invite people from outside of Canada. So non-essential workers might see some delays. That's it. And thank you so much for the last two questions, because we're already about 46 minutes. Milind Patel, and I'm really sorry if I pronounce any name wrong here. Hello, sir. I am standing at 425 with CEC. Any chance of getting an ITA? Already answered that. You could, after I finish, you could have watch the whole video. 425, still a bit of a stretch. It might only be possible if we have the same pattern continue, and if there's at least about 4 to 5 more draws. And the last question for the day, BF, when can we expect a direct extraction for FSW? I've already answered that. If you're asking about the FSWP draw, although if your question is that FSWP only draw, that won't be the case. Whenever we see things settling down, going back to normalcy, there will be express entry draw, which will invite CEC, FSWP applicants together. So whatever the cutoff then comes up, it will not be an FSWP only draw. That's my opinion. That's what I've seen historically. IRCC has the final decision, but it will be FSWP and CEC draw. So yeah, that's the last question. So yeah, that's all from my side. Hopefully I've been able to answer your questions and queries. There is a question, biometric centers are still closed in a lot of countries. Yes, they are. I have already mentioned that. You can watch the video in there. Some of about 15 biometric centers have opened up around the world. You go online and you can find that data. Or I will try and post the link in my in the description of video later on. So once you watch this video, I can post that over there as well. But not all biometric collection centers have opened. A few of them have opened. So concluding again, thank you very much for listening to me. Hopefully, I've been able to answer some of your queries. It's great talking to all of you. Hopefully, we will all see resumption of normalcy, so that I can start processing applications for my clients, and many of you can have resumption on your cases, and you can move on towards the dream of moving to Canada. Enjoy the Sunday that you have. For most of you outside of Canada, it's already probably Sunday evening. So hope you had a great weekend. For us, it's like midday. I'm a great football fan. I support Liverpool Football Club, and today they have so Premier League is back. I'm going to go run and watch the Premier League game. So enjoy your time. Till the next time that we meet, take care and Allah Hafiz.